All right, just hopped up with Frank. It was a wild time. He's the founder of Mavi. His story from corporate America into what he's doing now, there's this 18-month sabbatical that he did some real deep soul searching. We got emotional, we got deep, and we hit on some things that I've been hearing all over the place. And in the soul searching that he did in that sabbatical, the things he did in that time are so profound. I cannot wait for you guys to hear it. And then, of course, at the end, Chloe and I decide whether or not Mavi is a marketplace that we would use. And what we decided for the Mavi marketplace is that Alrighty, welcome back to the Decision Lab. Pumped to have Frank here. He's the founder of Mavi. We're excited to dive in, and welcome to the pod.
Welcome,
Thanks.
Frank.
Thank you. Good to be here, guys.
Hell yeah. So before we hop in, we actually have a surprise section that we don't tell our guests about that we like to start off with, actually. So here we go. All right. Can you see?
I can see.
Aloha, I'm Mo Love, and I'd like to share two words that make Frank so special. One, authentic. In a world that's becoming increasingly more artificial, Frank is refreshingly real. Two, committed. He never gives up, whether he's building a company, fighting for a cause, or helping others be a better version of themselves. His commitment is his superpower. And three, generous. His infectious generosity of spirit has impacted many lives, especially mine. I met Frank 25 years ago as colleagues, and after 16 amazing years of working together, he is now the godfather of my two daughters. He embodies servant leadership, prioritizing the success and now the well-being of others, which inspires me every day.
Boom. What a review.
How the hell do you know Mo? Where did you dig her up?
That's for us to know and you to maybe never find
Oh
out.
my God, that's a not very nice surprise, unexpected, and very much appreciated.
So tell us who this was and what they mean to you.
So, as Maureen said, we met 25 years ago at work. I was, we were all kind of catching the internet wave at the time. It was 1999 or 2000. And we met at work, and she's incredibly passionate and smart. So we had this sort of natural connection. And then she became part of my team, and she not only is incredibly smart and passionate, but she is incredibly effective at her job. We became kind of friends a little bit back in 1999, but then, we stayed in touch after we parted ways, and I actually wound up hiring her at a startup I was working at, and we brought her on, and she was there for 15 years, and her passion never waned one bit. But the most important part of Maureen is that we became very, very, very close friends. We just share an outlook on life. We're very much about helping others in order to help ourselves. And she's she's part of the inner circle and will be until the end.
Let's go. That's awesome. What a wild time. Sounds like you had a fun journey. I'm excited to get into your origin story here. Sounds like she's a part of it.
she's yeah, I'm glad those are the only stories that she told, or the only comments that she made. She's seen it all, good, bad, and ugly.
We'll have to get the spicy version from her
Yeah,
later.
yeah. Well, look, I mean, the thing about someone like Maureen, who's been in your life for half of it, is that they get to, one of the most special things about her and others that are in the inner circle is that we get to observe each other's journey. And that, in my opinion, is what relationships are all about, whether they're romantic or otherwise. It's about someone being so blessed that someone can observe your journey.
Hell yeah. Yeah, it's good. It's important to have those types of people. We had Dr. Paul Zak on here, and he is a scientist that studies social connection and human connection. And it's one of his 5 pillars of living a long, healthy life. So it's amazing that you got that inner circle.
Yeah. I'd love to connect with that guy.
I connected Nicole with him, I believe,
Oh.
or at least his team. He's the founder of the 6 app. So
yeah, of course.
Yeah. He's the neuroscientist behind it. So
yeah.
He's a good dude, mentor of mine. So talk to me about how'd you get here? What's your origin story? Like, what's your background?
Well, basics. I grew up in Philadelphia, just outside of Philadelphia, actually. Both my parents are Philadelphia natives, so it's sort of ingrained in us, that part of the world. My entire family is in the dental business. So I sort of grew up around tangentially health. And when I went to school, I studied finance and economics. I went to work on the stock exchange. when I was taped to a chair and my shoes were lit on fire and my tie was cut. I was like, yeah, it's interesting, but, not really my jam. So I was trying to figure out what I wanted my career to be. And it became very, very clear to me that I wanted to be a consultant because you just get to see so much. You get to see so many of the problems that you're trying to solve for clients. You get to be with multiple clients. And so I started my career at Anderson Consulting. I was there for 6 years, but I was very specialized in a health-related area, big pharma and biotechnology. So I worked for companies like Astra Merck, which then became AstraZeneca, with Amgen and others, and got to work on projects that were related to solving a disease state through biologics and bringing products to market. So I was pretty much focused on the commercialization aspects. And then everybody was leaving their jobs as consultants and catching the internet wave, which is where I met Maureen. But I went to some of the leading software as a service companies. The first one I went to was in the pharmacy area, always the undertone of something related to health. And then I left and followed a mentor to a company called Cornerstone, which is basically a people platform. Employers are the buyers, and it's meant to increase the value of an employee as an asset to the company. So how do you align their performance and their succession and their career development with their compensation and their rewards and recognition? And how do you upskill them and make sure that they're ready for the role they're in or the role that they're going to be in? And so it was very much a people platform. And that's where I really learned the value of the power of an organization's people to achieve success. Making sure people have the right skills, that are deployed to the right jobs and projects, that are valued and grown within the company, but ultimately that they're aligned with the objectives of the company. And so that became my first real focus on the end customer. If you think about B2B versus B2B2C, no one would call it a B2B2C platform, but I did, because we were really focused on the C, which is the employee. And I had many careers during my journey, my 13-year journey with Cornerstone. The last one of those careers was to go start the Cornerstone business in Asia Pacific. And so I always say I was given a bag of money and a mandate, and I moved to Hong Kong.
Dang.
And I started the business in 7 countries all at the same time, which is actually why my beard is so gray. I don't think it's my age. In hindsight, maybe would have chosen 1 or 2 countries, but we were overachievers and we did 7 countries at the same time. And so started the business from scratch in 7 countries. And all of those countries were so distinctly different. I was traveling 100% of the time. I came back to the US after 6 years. I came back to become the company's chief customer officer, but I was completely burnt out. And I had created this very robust customer portfolio strategy, because when I started the company, we were about $500,000 in revenue. When I came back, we were about $500 million. And so
Jesus,
it was quite a ride, right? It's one of those success stories, those hyper growth success stories. But the strategy that I had presented, I just knew in my heart I didn't have the energy or the capacity to do it. I was really burnt out. I was, to be quite honest, I was scared that I wasn't going to be able to work. And I wound up prioritizing myself, and I resigned that night after presenting the strategy. And I took 18 months off.
Hell yeah.
It took me, I highly recommend it, by the way. I was lucky enough to be able to do it. But I will tell you, for the first 6 of those 18 months, I was in recovery. I didn't realize why I didn't just be like, oh, I'm free. Let's go do this, whatever this was. And it took 6 months for me to realize the full potential of that break. And the full potential, if I could sum it up in one word, was availability. I didn't realize, in hindsight, it makes logical sense, but I didn't realize emotionally how unavailable I was emotionally to myself and to others, by the way. Physically unavailable. relationally, like all of it. And all of a sudden, intellectually, when you are spending 150% of your mind share on work, you don't realize it. It's like the secret killer that is just creeps up on you. And all of a sudden you run into a wall where you can't progress. And after 6 months, I became almost infinitely available to myself and others. And one of the things that happened, I went to France and I was sitting on a beach and I had so much intellectual capacity. I was writing business plans on napkins like every 3 days. And that's where a lot of my ideas around where I am today originated. It was on a beach in France. And I was very much focused on, or wanted to be focused on, something that had to do with human well-being. I didn't know exactly what it was. But that's kind of what got me to the point of being in the wellness, let's call it industry / environment.
Dang, that's wild. How did you know that you were burnt out? Like how did it show up for you?
Well, it was, like I said, it's a secret. It's like this, like, below the surface killer.
Yeah.
You're tired because you're working so hard. And it's not just physically tired, you're emotionally tired, right? And I knew that about myself. I had people, quite honestly, tell me I was emotionally unavailable. That's kind of like a smack in the face with a 2x4. But you don't really know what that means. You're like, what are you talking about? I come and I show up and I go to I'm here, look at me. But when
Right.
you're not there just because your body's there. And I was tired. But here's how I really knew. I started to become, my mind took over. Not my mind. My soul took over. I think the mind's a little bit too logical. It wasn't so like thoughtful about it. It started to become harder and harder to go to work as a physical action. And I started to have resistance about it. And the night I presented that, or the day I presented that, like, customer strategy, I went to open the door that morning and I couldn't. And I stood at the door to the office building. And I don't want to say I was panicked, but I was literally physically stuck. I didn't want to open it. And I just took a sort of a breath. I didn't really know what was happening. And I walked around the building 3 times. Like, what was that? What just happened? And I knew before I opened the door for the next time when I went through it, I was like, today's the day. Even before I presented, it was like, today's the day. And I presented, and then I went into the founder's office and shut the door and said, today's the day. I think I have to leave. And I don't really remember. It was kind of like one of those moments where you like black out, because you kind of like, you build, much of my persona was built around being an executive and having this job and doing these things and having, these goals. And I was like, whoa, who is Frank if he's not that? And it turns out Frank's a lot, which I didn't know. But it took me. I'm still looking, by the way. It's not looking. I'm still uncovering.
Right.
And so that's how it happened.
Wow. How did you start to piece together who you were? That identity crisis you went through. What were some of the things that you did to piece yourself together after leaving your executive job?
I gave myself the time. Look, I'm telling you about this in hindsight. I have to be honest. Yeah. The first 6 months, I was like having like some serious, like, holy shit moments. But time and mental and emotional capacity gave me the opportunity to absorb other things in life. And, I knew Frank liked certain things, but didn't really do them all the time. And turns out I didn't actually like all the things I thought I liked. I thought I should like those things. Or because I wasn't doing them all the time, I kind of did like them, not doing them all the time. And so just slowly but surely, I didn't force it. I was lucky enough to not have to say, in 6 months, I got to like have this figured out, have my next job, and know who Frank is. It wasn't that. And I knew I was going back to work, of course. I just didn't know exactly when. And I was lucky enough to have that flexibility. But slowly but surely, I started to just uncover not just pieces of Frank that were interesting, but pieces of Frank that never addressed. Pieces of, your personality or your wounds, and as that we all carry around in life that get pushed down. they started to kind of like tap at the door, and which is also massively uncomfortable. And the instinct is to push them down and push them away. But I didn't have a choice because they kept knocking, and I didn't have work to hide behind. So yeah, it comes up. It's why we're here, right? We're here to deal with all this stuff. And so it was like, hey, dude, you're 50. You don't have a whole ton of time left to deal with this. So we're going to force it. and you kind of have no choice but to listen unless you want to just keep hiding.
Wow. I'm curious about the becoming more available part two. Did that just happen organically, or were there things, tools, and processes you used to become, more present, more available to life and people?
I think there's no single thing. I think it was a lot of things. One, I actually just had time. So I was by nature more available. Now, what was interesting about that is that I chose to spend a lot of time alone. And I think that was one of the keys. And I wasn't forcing it. It's just what I needed. And that time alone just left me with me. And that's where the like, hey, knocking at the door, like we have to deal with this, or, here's some things that you need to think about. And the other thing is, I also had a lot of time for discovery. And one of the things I think about life that I realized not until I started this business and looking in hindsight at my time off and my whole life, is that discovery is the most important thing in life. It is about bumping around and discovering what you do like, but just as important, discovering what you don't like. And that is life's unfolding process. And I wasn't doing that. I was discovering work. And so I was behind. I had to be honest. I in some ways, I was a 17-year-old. And, it's funny because as you are older, the 17-year-old can catch up pretty quickly if you allow it to. But it's scary.
How did you do that? What was that discovery process for you? Like if someone was in your shoes struggling with what you're describing, what would you suggest to them?
Two things. Find ways to give yourself time. It doesn't mean you have to take 18 months off from work. I just happen to have that luxury. But find ways to give yourself time. And there is no one that understands more how hard it is to check out. Even if you say, I'm going to give myself this day or this week, or I'm going to take a vacation. If you were me and you were taking a week vacation, you just became semi-available to yourself on the last day. So you do have to find ways to do it. And it doesn't have to be long vacations. It can be moments. But the key to life is stringing together these mindful moments, is making the moment intentional, being mindful of it. You don't have to solve your entire life problem or the world's problems in one moment, but you do need to string them together. And you need to acknowledge the fact that the beauty of life is that you can string them together. And as long as you're intentional and mindful about it, I think it works probably just as well as taking 18 months off. It's about the intention. I think that would be my number one recommendation. But I will tell you, as part of that mindfulness and these moments, things are going to come up, and you have to allow them to come up because they're scary, they're painful, they're whatever word you use for the things that come up. You can't resist them. Resisting them just slows down this process. You just have to allow them, as painful as they may be. And I think that that's the second part of it is life is about allowing. I mean, we're just here to allow, and then be inspired with what comes out of it.
What were the core things that, if you're comfortable sharing, what were some of the core challenges? You said things come knocking at the door. Like what were some of those? And then how did you learn to allow them as you're talking about here?
Well, you're getting personal, Cody. I mean, look, it's hard. Look, I'm 53 years old and I didn't really know who I was. As Mo said, there are attributes of Frank that people have liked, which is great. There are attributes of Frank, by the way, that people don't like, but I didn't really know fully who I was. And that just became a really scary proposition for me. So, it's something as simple as what do you really like to do? I don't know. I like to travel, but I didn't have that. I play padel every Saturday because I'm so obsessed with it. Like I didn't have those things. And so it was this really amazing exercise of figuring out what it was that interested me. The second thing is, because I had all this capacity, I found myself on YouTube, actually, just because I'm a lifelong learner. I'm hyper curious, but I didn't know that about myself until I discovered it. I've always been a learner when I was told I need to learn, but I was never a learner with things that interested me. And I found myself on YouTube being fascinated by topics and like going down these rabbit holes that really fed my soul in some ways and turned into this branches of so much other stuff. There's so much to uncover in life. And by the way, I went through this moment of this period, not a moment, a period of like, God damn, like I wasted all this time. It was almost like, the cycle of grief. Like I was grieving years wasted. And then you can't get them back. So you need to like smack yourself in the face and be like, okay, what about the years to come? And I think the ultimate was this realization that the only thing you really have is now, right? The past is the past. It's interesting, but it's actually not super relevant. The future is the future. It's maybe you're optimistic, maybe you're not optimistic, but it hasn't actually happened yet. And when it does happen, it will be now. So once you kind of wrap your head around, the past was once now, the future will be now, and now is now. Now is really all that you have. And so you don't have to grieve not having made the most of the past or what will happen in the future. And it's not easy. It takes practice. But right now, I'm super grateful to be having this conversation, super happy that I'm sitting outside doing it. And, it makes the now really good.
Chloe loves that too.
I love that concept. That's been something I've been working on so much lately. And it really helps with even just anxiety, right? Because we worry so much about the future. And I always say, like, you're predicting a future. And if you're going to worry about it and consider the worst possible outcome, you might as well also consider the best possible outcome because they're equally as likely.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think something else.
By the way, your thoughts do create your reality. Let's be clear. So if you are obsessing about the worst possible outcome, 100% guarantee it's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Something I wanted to double click on because I think your story is really, really profound is like, you said you felt behind and you told us this amazing like career success story. And I think that's really impactful for me where sometimes you put so much weight on career success because you tell the story and it's like, oh, you had massive, massive career success. You traveled all over the world. Like you helped scale this company like an insane amount and you finished that. And, you felt behind, which is so crazy to me because very often we measure our success mostly just on career and financial.
Yeah. I wouldn't have felt behind, Chloe, honestly, if I didn't leave. I would have just stayed as the career Frank, which would have been really sad. Because what I've realized is that I kind of like myself in not the career Frank, So I mean, that's kind of part of it is like, you kind of just need to like yourself. And I didn't really when it was just me and Frank hanging out because I was like, well, who are you? And I kind of felt like that Frank didn't really have his shit together, but he was really great at his career. And so now, people say things that are cliche, like, oh, you need to have balance. Yeah. You do, right? But now I can't imagine myself going back to that old model. And it has been the new thinking about who Frank is part of the company. We really do think we're doing business in new ways. And so all of these things that I learned about myself are now kind of part of the DNA of the company.
Perfect transition into your claim to fame. I would love to hear more about your company, Mavi, and what it stands for, what it is. And we like to start this with, could you, in 60 seconds, tell us what Mavi is and why we should care?
Do you have a stopwatch? It's hard to do in 60 seconds, but I'm going to try. How we pursue well-being is a journey, like life. It's not really a destination. It's this constantly unfolding, unique journey, hyper-personal. Your journey is different than mine. Never really ends unless you become Buddha or die. You're probably going to die first. And it's constantly changing. So how do you navigate something like that? By the way, does it sound like anything that we've been talking about? It sounds like life, right? So our hypothesis or point of view is that the aspiration to be well is life. And it's about exploring, discovering, connecting, learning, shopping, earning, giving, all of those things make up life. And so we created a platform. It's an app for you and me that brings together the things that you need to really support your unique life journey. Trusted media and content to inform, educate, inspire, community for connection and support, the ability to shop well, to be well through a marketplace of almost 2,000 of the best wellness products and services on the planet. Coming soon, an agentic coach plus combined with human coaching to help you navigate that journey in moments that matter. And the punchline is this rewards mechanism that will turn the model on its head. Instead of paying for us when we're sick, we're creating a new economy where you get paid for being well. And that is blowing up old models that are disconnected, siloed, like not really super engaging, and essentially broken. So, I mean, everybody knows healthcare is broken. And we only look at the healthcare system. We're glad it's there when we're sick, but we don't look at it to keep us well. And so we're just kind of blowing up old models and reimagining how you and I experience our lifelong aspiration to be well.
So what's close the gap between your 18-month like vacation, finding yourself, and the founding of Mavi? How did that bridge that gap?
Yeah. Well, the springboard was the 18 months. I was on the beach in France writing business plans. One of them was related to wellness. It's a variation of what Mavi is today. But essentially, when I came back and was ready to kind of get back into it, COVID happened. And all of a sudden, I was like, I didn't have a job. I was locked in my house and was not really sure what was going to happen next. So I started to doom scroll on Instagram, which I had never done, about, well, anything. But I had well-being on my mind, as we all did during COVID. And, well, Instagram got to know me really quickly and was serving me up ads that were, I mean, spot on. And I was fascinated by it. And I started to engage. The ads got more relevant. And I started to buy stuff. And, you know, we were on COVID, so you forget that this stuff is delivered. It's at your front door. And all of a sudden you go outside and there's like a pile of boxes waiting for you. You're like, oh, shoot, I'm that crazy person who's like ordering off a QVC at 4 a.m. because I have nothing else to do. But anyway, I got really, really frustrated for a couple of reasons. One was, when I opened the boxes, I was mostly disappointed. There was a huge gap between the ad and the execution. And then the second thing was, the minute I bought something, like I bought this red light to reduce inflammation, was disappointed when I opened the box. But once I bought it, I immediately got an ad for another red light. The ad was better. The people were hotter. The whatever, you know, it's like everything that they play to in your emotion when they market to you. And so I was like, well, which one should I have bought? Turns out I shouldn't have bought either. But what started to evolve was this, you know, I had this other notion of a wellness company. It was tangentially related. But then I really started to understand, like dig into wellness. It's like, well, wait, okay, first, I'm not shopping well. And so that's a problem, right? Why is it a problem? Because I don't know if you know this, but consumers spend $6.3 trillion a year on well-being globally. And by the way, it's growing,
Wow.
even in economic uncertainty. It's supposed to be $8 trillion by 2028. So that's like twice the size of Japan, like just so we're clear. So it's a massive market. And in anything massive, it's complex. There's misinformation, disinformation. It's hard to navigate. And so the original idea was, well, how do I help people shop well to be well? Curating was one of the answers. But it turned out that it wasn't enough. Like I didn't just want to curate products and services. I wanted to help you navigate wellness. And I really started to think about what is wellness? And all of those things I already said. It's a journey, not a destination, lasts a lifetime, constantly changing. Yours is different than mine. All of those things became very apparent very quickly. And the fact that that it's lifelong became like the punchline. It's like, whoa, this thing it actually doesn't end till you die. And that became the problem I wanted to solve, which is how do you go to one place and find the best of all of the things that support your journey, not just products and services, but content and media and community and other things, rewards, cash rewards, by the way, And how do you bring all of that together into an experience that becomes your personal wellness hub, for lack of a better term, the place you go, the destination. And we do a lot of the legwork for you so you can kind of trust it. It becomes transparent and it can grow. Like there's no end to things we can build to support you and keep you engaged and nudged along the way. And it can evolve with you because, you know, in today's world, it's with data and AI, we get into the ability to much more easily and effectively hyper-personalize the experience for you. So that's how the springboard from the time off and then COVID, it was like, you know, the company got started in the middle of COVID. And so we decided that this is the problem we were going to solve.
Awesome. I can definitely relate. And having been the creator behind ads that are served to people, it's interesting. It's honestly one of the reasons why we started this podcast as well. Because the amount of times I've been disappointed when a brand sends me something and I'm just like, no, I will not help you put this in front of more people. Like we say no to more products we say yes to. So it's just wild.
We say no too. I mean, we're curators as well. And that's why I love this podcast, is because we're very well aligned in our intention. We're coming at it from different angles, but it's, you know, we're trying to we're all trying to solve the same problem. And that's what our business, Cody and Chloe, is fundamentally premised upon the collective network that we build. So we are all about, like, we're not doing this alone. We need you. We need our brand partners. We need our media partner. We need everybody. And we're a platform for raising all boats. You know, we always say to our brand partners, we just don't just want to sell your stuff. We want you to participate in raising all boats. And there are ways that we enable them to do that, which is sort of interesting and a whole nother discussion. But, you know, if we're going to stay focused on the human user in this case, you know, it's about giving you a trusted place to go. And
right.
By the way, and an experience that doesn't exist as holistically as we're talking about.
So what is that dream experience? Two things. Who's your ideal client and what is that dream experience that you have for them?
Well, one of the things I didn't say is that how we go to market. So let's talk about the user for a second. You know, the user we can get into a debate about like how you effectively go to market and which exact population you're targeting. And should they be men or women, and they should be in this age and this demographic, and should they be gym goers or yoga people? All those things are true, right? You know, what's great about the solution today is if you're a well-being curious or a well seeker, you're a great target. If you're engaged in well-being in a meaningful way, you're a great target. But ultimately, as Mavee expands, the target will be anyone who has a goal. Could be I want to not have diabetes. Could be I want to lose weight. Could be I want to be more mindful, whatever that is. So eventually the target is everyone. I mean, maybe not children just yet, but everyone. All adults. And because this is a lifetime thing and your needs are different. The unique thing about Mavee is that we ultimately understand that your needs as a 21-year-old are different than your needs as a 45-year-old and different than your needs as a 60-year-old or an 80-year-old. And so that's what ultimately we will be all about, is being personal to you based on who you are, not just your age, but who you are. And Mavee's available direct to consumer today, although we're not actively spending money to acquire direct consumers. Our first entry into the market is using Mavee as a wellness solution that employers can give to their employees. That's one of the prongs and our first prong. And the way that we do that is Mavee is anchored in this notion of a digital wallet. And the digital wallet serves two purposes. Today, it will serve more purposes in the future, but today it serves the purpose of an employer being able to give you money to spend on your well-being, which solves a massive problem for employers, which is when an employer says, look, we're going to roll out this meditation app and we're going to give everyone a wearable device. It's a great idea. And there's a lot of excitement around it. And everybody downloads the app or uses the device for 30 days. And then they have this massive drop-off because the device didn't resonate with Cody, or maybe the app didn't resonate with Chloe, or maybe mindfulness is not top of mind for Chloe, but it is for Cody. So the point being is that because our needs are so hyper personal, because wellness is tactical and happening in the course of life, an employer is highly disadvantaged. They could never know what Chloe and Cody need at that moment. And so what this does is it allows them to support the wellness journey of the employee by giving them choice. But what we say to the employer is we can guarantee you that your money is well spent. It's spent at the choice by the employee. It's spent on well-being. You can't go buy cigarettes with your digital wallet and Mavi. And it's spent with brands that are changing and doing good in the world, changing the world and doing good in the world, because we vet them. And so it's money well spent.
It's interesting. So essentially for an employer, instead of trying to do a one size fits all thing through Mavi, which is like Amazon, but 1,000 times better and only vetted products, each individual employee can go and figure out, I am super stressed, so I need some ashwagandha gummies.
Correct.
Or I want to work out more, so I need the best like yoga mat. Or
correct.
I mean, I'm being super simplistic, right. But got it.
And just on the yoga mat point, it's a good one. If you want a yoga mat, if you're not like a diehard yoga fan and you're like not going to travel to India to get your yoga mat, you're going to go to Amazon. And you're going to type in yoga mat and you're going to get 5,652 options for the yoga mat. And you're likely going to buy the one that is Amazon's choice because you don't want to deal with it. We have two yoga mats. One gets thrown into a landfill when you're done, and then 10 days later it's disintegrated. And one gets sent back to the company, made into shoes for people who don't have them in India. And so we don't have 1,000 yoga mats. We have two really amazing ones that have purpose behind them. Beyond just being a yoga mat.
Damn, so it's way different than Amazon, because that's not what would happen to an Amazon
we always
yoga
say
mat.
we're not Amazon for wellness. You have to be invited into Mavi. You are not knocking on our door and being like, oh yeah, where do I sign? It doesn't work that way.
Well, let's talk about that. So great claim to fame. Let's dive into the lab. So usually the lab section is where we dive into like a specific product, but you're like the product of products.
We're a platform of platforms and a solution of solutions. That's exactly right.
Right. But you do have this curation process. And one of the things you mentioned on your website is a curated marketplace of the best wellness products and services on the planet from brands changing the world.
Yeah.
So what does this mean and what does this curation process look like?
Yes. So it is formal. It looks like this. The brand team is scouring the world for the best products and services. They're doing research on the brand, those products and services before we even reach out to the brand. Sometimes, by the way, brands know who we are now, so they're reaching out to us. But before we even have a conversation with them, we're doing research. And we're determining whether or not they're going to, on the surface, meet our requirements. Our requirements are defined in a methodology called YES, Y-E-S, which means that we go through a process of making sure that the brand is good for you, the consumer, good to the environment, and good to society. So those are the three macro buckets. Each of them has at least 10 sub points. So for a total of 30 to 35 kind of criteria. One of the things that we recognized early on is that, and you can imagine, by the way, some of these examples. Good for you is, do they have like open claims in the world where there's lawsuits against them, or do they have, what are their public ratings and their private ratings like? For the planet, you can imagine we ask things like, what does your supply chain look like? Are you using sustainable packaging? Do you offset carbon when you ship? Those kinds of questions. Even more advanced questions, by the way, like, are you using sustainable office practices? And what are they? Do your lights automatically turn off in the office when you leave the bathroom or when the office is closed? Is your office building green certified? So we get down into it. And then in society, are you using your voice to advocate for fair and equitable society? Are you giving product and service away to those in need? Do you support nonprofits like 1% for the planet, etc.? One of the things we realized very early is that we couldn't require you to do all these things, but we could assess what things you are doing and assign value to that, because everyone's doing different things based on their own set of values. If you're not doing enough, you don't make it. And by the way, so the next step in the process is once you're invited to participate, if you so choose, you are completing this assessment. And then we are evaluating the assessment in a roundtable format with Dr. Michelle Shuffett, who's on our advisory board. She's the chief medical officer of a biotech company. And at least always 2 people from Mavi. So there has to be 3 people present. We debate. We actually uncover questions that we want to go back with. Like when someone says, well, we give our, are you advocating for a fair and just society? And they say, oh yeah, we had this post on Instagram about, let's say, Earth Day. Okay, that's not enough to just because you have one post about Earth Day. So we ask for more examples. Or when someone says our supply chain is we have a sustainable supply chain. Well, how do you know? Are you evaluated by a third party? Are you a C Corp? Whatever those things are. So we ask for evidence when what they've provided is not clear. And oftentimes companies don't make it out of the gate, but then we share with them opportunities for them to make it. And what they could be doing is low-hanging fruit. And our whole notion here is that if you make it, that's great. But we want to evolve and grow what everyone's doing over time to make the world better.
That's beautiful.
So
is this public
This is living, breathing thing. Funny you should ask. It is actually not public yet. It's stored all internally. It is stored, including the back and forth. And what we're building right now, actually, and Nicole from our team who leads the marketplace will tell you, she's been given a mandate to make that part of her job go away. Which makes no sense. But how are we going to do this? Well, because this is very much a data-driven exercise that takes a bunch of back and forth, we're building an AI agent that will be the assessor, not the scorer, the assessor, to collect the data, aggregate the data, and present it to us in a format that already meets our needs. And then we will review it. But because we'll be doing that, and as I think I told you, we are going to be bringing an AI coach into the Mavi platform. It's not there yet, but that coach is going to guide you along your wellness journey. But imagine looking at one of my favorite brands, Kaibe, and instead of reading all of the information that we've collected on Kaibe, which one would never do, you ask the coach, tell me why Kaibe is so great. And it'll sum it up for you. It will tell you that their gut support, microbiome support product is the core ingredient is the ancient baobab tree in Africa's fruit. And I know, Chloe, I think if I understand, you're a baobab fan.
I am, very much so.
Baobab is an incredibly nutrient-dense prebiotic that supports microbiome health. And Kaibe is the #1 source of income for communities in Ghana that harvest the baobab fruit. So you wouldn't know that, and you're probably not going to read 12 paragraphs to figure that out. But we might tell you proactively with the AI agent, or we might just be responding to your question about why baobab's so good.
So one version, or the one part of the AI will be able to help with the validation of brands and getting back the survey responses, responding, doing the back and forth. And then the other half will help the consumer. Something
Correct.
I'm curious about is AI in it of itself has some environmental, impacts. And so as someone who, one of your core tenets is environment and how it affects, is there anything you're doing to make sure it's sustainable AI you're using? You're watching the energy consumption, water use, in relation to the models?
Let me say one more thing before I answer that question, because it's a great one. I also want to say one of the things that is very important to us as a core tenet that we will be advancing is this notion of radical transparency. So not only will you be able to ask the AI, like, tell me about baobab or why is Kaibe so great, we're going to expose the score. So right today, we're not exposing the score. It's internal. But we're going to expose the score. You're going to know Kaibe is like 5 out of 5 on environment We call those brands, by the way, environmental heroes. We give them a tag. We do that today. We just call them an environmental hero or a societal hero or a consumer hero, because those are the three areas. But we're going to expose the score. Got 4.2 out of 5.
Nice.
So as an example. Yeah. Yep. So that becomes this, say, intellectual property of Mavi, which is our framework for evaluating the brands and exposing, supporting radical transparency. To your question, of course, Mavi is hyper committed to the environment in lots of ways. So first, we plant a tree with every order, 1. 2, we are building forests through those orders that come from us planting trees, and our users are allowed to plant trees in the app. They can literally buy a tree. They can choose the forest they want it to be in. And in the app, we expose the forest. So you can actually see the progress of the forest growing in 6 countries around the world. We'll expand those countries over time. So that's one thing that we're doing. We bring what we call impact partners to the table. So for example, if we have a brand that is interested in reducing their shipping footprint, we bring our partner, Manifest, to them, who is focused on sustainable 3PL or third-party logistics, pick, pack, and ship. And so they offset their carbon to ship. They're using sustainable materials, no plastic, all these things. So we help the brands get better as well. And right now, we're not consuming a lot of energy. But when we start, you can rest assured that we will offset that in ways that are yet to be determined, whether that's buying carbon offsets or whatever comes up at the time when we're consuming enough energy to be concerned.
Got it. That's awesome. The other question I have is, you curate these brands for consumer, society, and environment, and kind of put them through your assessment and give them a score. Does anybody do that for you? Like a third party do that for Mavi to give Mavi a score?
Not yet, but we do intend to become a certified B Corp. So because we're not shipping a lot of product yet, I mean, we're not the ones shipping product, right? We're not holding inventory, but there is a way for us to become a certified B Corp. And, that's going to be really important to us. And in fact, we're going to incentivize our brands to become B Corp certified as well. We have many certified B Corps as part of the brand family. And one of the things that we talked about is creating a sub community within the brand. We call it the brand collective. So that's how we refer to all of our brand partners. A subcommittee within that the intention is to support other brands who want to do it, because it's not a small undertaking, right? So our one like panacea for us would be, you become a Mavi brand collective family member. You're not a certified B Corp, but you're this isn't true yet, but I'm just saying, like, this is panacea. I could imagine a day where we say, hey, in 3 years, you need to be a certified B Corp, and we're going to help you get there. Like, these are the kinds of things that we're doing to really, that we're thinking about, to really, our impact is not just about how much energy we consume with AI, but rather how we bring the whole collective along to shrink the footprint or to make society better, whatever those things are. And so our brands, one of the things that comes out of this, which is so beautiful, is that when you have this family of brands who have passed our assessment, first of all, we know each other intimately by the time you get invited in, but we're all like-minded. So we don't have to convince you you should shrink your footprint. We already know that God, brands would love to do this, but they don't know how. They think it's hard, whatever those things are. And, as we evolve, we want to make it easier. That's
Nice.
part of our value proposition of raising all boats.
Something I'm curious about in the consumer section, because a lot of what we do on this podcast specifically is validate the science specifically behind things. Are the products that are curated into the marketplace, would you consider them science-backed? How do you validate that? Or what do you think?
So right now, I will tell you that there is an evolution to our methodology. So right now, we're evaluating what you're saying is true. And so if you say it's science-backed, you have to point to the studies. If you say it's, or let me say it differently. There is a big difference between science. My products are science-backed and the ingredients are science-backed. Those are two different things. So people often say science-backed, but have your products been in a study so that you're saying, the efficacy is XYZ. Have you proven that with a study? Versus Baobab is science-backed, right? It's as a prebiotic. So those are two different things. So we help to distinguish between those things. We're not reading every study in excruciating detail. We're validating that they can point to the study. And a lot of these brands, actually, we go back to them all the time and say, and they do point to the study. And we say, well, why are you not pointing to this study on your website? Like, why do you just say science-backed? Why don't you just point to it? And so it's like these little things that we kind of nudge people along. But as we evolve the methodology, as our capabilities get better and we have more resources, we will evolve how far we can dig, like you guys are doing. I would argue you guys are going a step further from a science perspective.
Yeah, that'd be interesting, especially to dive deep, because a study is a study. Just because clinically tested doesn't mean clinically validated. That's one of the
100%.
most common things I see on
100%.
claims, and people just average consumer just doesn't know that. They don't even know to ask, was it randomized? Was it placebo? Was it how many participants was it?
How many
Like,
participants?
Was it a pilot study? Who paid for it? Like, there's so many things. So I was just curious on the state of that.
Yeah, it's an evolution for us, for sure.
Got it.
Maybe
That's
you
awesome.
guys can be our science partner.
Hey, that'd be fun. I like that. So speaking of which, do you guys have any commitments to the consumer side, the buyers, or guarantees or things about like the products and services that are in the marketplace today?
I mean, we state that, we have looked at the market to make sure that there are no outstanding claims, that they have good reviews, that these are products that are solving a problem in the world of wellness. Those types of things.
Got it. So it's had at least like a passover and going
absolutely,
through
absolutely.
an assessment. Like,
so
it's not just
absolutely.
Any random person. Like,
I mean,
anyone
look,
can post something on
and one of the things we come up across for newer brands who haven't yet fully established themselves is there are not enough reviews out there in the public sphere. And, we're also making sure, like, are the sources of these reviews, is it like a place where you could have 1 million bots in another country, right, writing reviews? And so there are ways to get around that through services like Trustpilot and others. So,
right. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, we're looking at all of that stuff. And, we will also put reviews in Mavi. They're not there yet. Because we want the user base to be exponentially bigger for reviews to really matter. But we have always said to the brands, you have to earn your way to get into Mavi, and you have to earn your stay. Mm-hmm. And we have kicked brands out, and I don't mean that in actually a negative way, but things happen in the world. I'll give you a good example. We had a water bottle that we love, highly revered in the world, and there was a study that was released that found lead in the bottom portion. Now, it didn't affect the water, but it was in the bottom portion where you were meant to put your keys. So when you go on a hike, your keys are with you in the bottom of your water bottle. But the study said, well, if people put cookies in there, then the cookies are exposed to lead. And we took them down until they resolved the issue, right?
Good Lord.
Yeah, I mean, it's a rough, it's hard to be perfect. It's hard to be perfect.
Yeah. For sure.
And
so you're not just watching it when they come in, but also you're continuously monitoring.
Absolutely.
That's interesting. That's an interesting point. So, all right, if we put our skeptical consumer hats on here, what are some of the criticisms or the biggest skepticisms that people have who hesitate to use Mavi that you've heard so far?
That I've heard? I mean, I'm going to give you a real example. I don't know if this is answering your question, but I have had this actually. A lot of our users are employees. And by the way, like I said, any direct consumer can go get Mavi right now, but a lot of our users are employees. We interview our users. So we ask our employers, can we pull a couple people a month and just ask them, get their thoughts? And so we get on the phone with this guy, Rick. Rick was in New Jersey. It was a call just like this. Nicole and I get on the phone. I was on this one. I'm not on every one, but I was on this one. And we say, hey, Rick, what do you think of Mavi? And this kid did not skip a beat. He was like, look, I got to tell you, I would never use this app ever. And we were like, we're very caught off guard. And we were like, tell. And he said, I'm just not that guy. I don't care. I don't care. He's like, I golf and that's it. I love it. I don't spend money on myself. I would never buy anything that you guys have. And he put up his finger and he said, except my employer gave me $300. And he pulls out this back pillow on the call that has it's a lumbar support. It has micro needles on it. He goes, I have a bad back. I love this pillow. It kind of hurts. It kind of feels good. It reminds me to push into it. And he's going off about this pillow. And he said, I would have never found this if my employer didn't give me money. We told the employer, by the way, we didn't tell them it was Rick, but we told the employer the story. And the employer said this, the president of the company, I would spend money on that all day. How the hell am I supposed to know if Rick needs a back pillow? You know? So it's like, it literally is like the punchline of the employer value proposition of Mavi. You know, what other things have I've heard? You know, we say things like, we help you doom scroll, but about your well-being. I mean, look, my response to that is, we're meeting people where they are. Where are they? They're spending $6 trillion a year, so they're shopping. They're spending most of their time on social media, so they're doom scrolling. So it's kind of like, Mavi is kind of like TikTok meets Amazon for good. And so we help you doom scroll. So, you know, and we're doing it with content that people would expect when they doom scroll. You know, eventually we will be, I recently did hear this from someone very business savvy person. And they said, well, why would you reward people for being well? Isn't wellness the reward? And I got to tell you, you know, I kind of I got up on my soapbox a little bit because, you know, the system is broken in that we are only paying when people are sick. We pay for them to not be sick. We pay for them to get better. The economic, turning that on its head and paying people for being well, the economic ROI on that is so massive and it will ultimately break all of the models. And, you know, that was a skepticism. And I guess the last thing that I would say, which we didn't talk about, but, you know, where Mavi is headed is that eventually, you know, we will be built on a Web3 infrastructure, which allows us to reward. Right now we reward cash, but the whole premise of Mavi is to create the health economy, to use Web3 principles to create a new economy that turns what I just said on its head and incentivizes people to be well. The incentive will be the Mavi token, which is a Web3 token. It will have cash value. And people have said to me, well, you know, we don't really need Web3. Like, people aren't ready for that. People are like, what? This is crypto. And I say that, you know, Web3 is new. And unless you've studied it for thousands of hours like I have in order to come to my conclusion about why Web3 will be so important to this economy that we're building, Mavi is not just an app. Eventually, it will be an economy. It is an ecosystem of all of the things connected into one place that you need to be well or that you can choose to support your wellness journey. And you will be rewarded with Web3 tokens that have cash value. So if you're a old school person and you want, you know, just the cash, great, take the cash. If you want the Web3 token, which can grow in value as the network grows, then you can choose the Web3 side. Behind the scenes, it's all going to be a Web3 infrastructure. But why do that? Like, well, the world's changing so rapidly, and Web3 and blockchain is going to be part of our new world. It's blowing up our financial systems. It is changing the way that we interact with our data. It allows us sovereignty of our data. And it allows us to connect ecosystem to ecosystem to bring people into our collective ecosystems. And it's incredibly powerful. But the punchline of Web3 is that it puts the user in control. It is not that the entity, my employer, my healthcare provider, United Healthcare, they're not in control. Those are the ones in control now. But when it's a distributed, decentralized ecosystem and you have a token, you become an owner in the network. So Mavi eventually will be owned by the people who choose to participate in the ecosystem and in just demonstrating healthy behavior. It's not going to be owned by your healthcare provider or your employer or some solution provider. Eventually, it won't be owned by Mavi.
That's interesting. I think in our next frontier section, I've got a couple of questions about that. The question that we got from one of the anonymous questions we got was from seemingly another brand potentially, but their curiosity is like, why would a brand decide, oh, I'm going to be in the Mavi marketplace instead of just selling it directly on their website where they get 100% of the profit?
Yeah, they would. They would sell it directly on their 100 and get 100% of the profit, and they're likely already selling on Amazon, and Amazon's taking a big cut. Why do they sell on Amazon? Because it's bringing them an audience. We're going to bring them an audience that's highly vetted audience of well seekers with money to spend. Like there's literally money being given to them, and money that they're earning to spend on well-being. So it's very rare. By the way, you have to hope that they find your product on Amazon, right? That you're going to be Amazon's choice. So, we're bringing you a highly qualified audience of people with money to spend. We will bring you. That's number one. That's like the punchline. But there are sub points. One, being part of the Mavi family gives you access to the collective of brand partners to interact with, to share stories with, to get support from, to do collaborations with. We are bringing you our impact partners to help you grow your business, whether that be sustainable third-party logistics, whether that be HR and accounting support with vetted companies that support growing businesses, whether that be sustainable packaging providers. We've vetted a bunch of partners that we bring to the ecosystem as they're ready to evolve themselves. Again, going back to this point of we want to bring everybody along in both growing their business and growing their impact in the world.
Got it. Another question we got was from.
You think that's a good enough answer?
I hope so. I think it is. It makes complete sense to me. The very first thing you said
I'm curious
is
what you
makes
guys
the most
think.
sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think the beginning piece is what I think is the bottom line. That makes complete sense, especially to a brand. So to a consumer, I think it makes more sense. But that's the other question we got is for a consumer, like when will this be more ready or directly available, like in a public way, or like that you're pushing it out to consumers?
Well, it is available in a public way today. You can go download Mavi, and all of your listeners can get $20 in their wallet, digital wallet. So I encourage you to do it. And be part of the community as it grows. Be part of the voice of the community as the app grows, not just the community grows, but we're very much about building what people need in the app. And we do check in with the community and ask for their opinions. The next thing, I don't know if you have a question around this, but I'm happy to tell you about some of the things that are happening next in the app.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's move into the next frontier. Let's talk about what's on your product roadmap, like next year, next 10 years, like.
Well, 10 years.
Let's pause that for a second. I know your brain just went there. I'm going to stay current if you don't mind. Yes.
So the first thing that you will expect next, which is actually already in our staging environment and ready to go, we just haven't released it, is the first go at embedded services. So embedded services are, our marketplace includes both digital services like the meditation apps and the fitness apps, et cetera. We are embedding some of those very strategically into Mavi so that they can be launched within Mavi and data flows back and forth. The reason that that's so important is because think of Mavi as like your iPhone for wellness. Apple is never going to go out and build a nutrition app. They're just going to give you the platform to have the nutrition app be discoverable in the App Store. It's kind of like what we do. Although Apple's not as curated, we're very specifically curating these. So the first embedded app that will come out will be a fitness app. It will not only give you access to digital fitness plans and content, but also we will be bringing a 20,000 gym and studio network to Mavi. So you will be able to subscribe to access all kinds of gyms and studios in your area.
Wow.
The second one will be a sleep app, and we'll continue to embed more and more. We will also be releasing our data integration capabilities. So your ability to connect your wearable, your Aura ring, you pick the device. And all of that data will be yours. It will drive hyper-personalization.
Mhm.
And it will also fuel the coach that will eventually come. So all of these things kind of coming in order. And then the rewards and incentive engine, the first version of that will come this year.
Yeah. What's that going to look like initially? What's the V1 of that reward and incentive engine?
It will be the ability for major stakeholder groups like employers, brands, health plans to invest in behavior that they choose. So a very basic example is, imagine an employer saying, I'm going to give my employees $25 a week if they walk at least 5,000 steps a day. But imagine a brand topping that up and saying, well, if you join the Active Walking Challenge, the top 3 winners are going to get $200. Or everyone who participates will get another $1, or whatever it is. So we're giving all of these different stakeholder groups the opportunity to invest in your well-being, but not breaking down the silos. So it's not your employer does this thing and the brands do this thing and health plans do this thing. We're going to be bringing it all together so that they can all invest and all participate in population well-being. I don't know exactly what it will look like right out of the gate. This is a long journey, but it will be some of the basic behaviors that you can expect, like challenges and milestone-based rewards. And it will be cash. It will be cash. And we've learned that, points are interesting, but cash talks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. So if we just zoom out just a little bit, you alluded to this a little bit, I think, with your crypto economic vision here, but you're like the best person ever to ask, like, AI, data-driven health, new consumer trends. Where do you see the wellness industry headed? There's
a lot of stuff happening in the wellness industry. One of the things I would say, it's evolving almost as quickly as technology is evolving, and technology seems to be one of the core foundational reasons why it's evolving. I always say one of the things that's happening are changes. So because of AI, because of Web3, and also in the world, financial models are changing. Like, what is money versus Bitcoin? People are going to be freaking out about all this stuff. So one of the things that's happening is what stresses us out is coming fast, changing and coming fast. And so we're going to have to respond. The industry is going to have to respond, and is responding to how do we reduce anxiety and stress as these major changes are upon us. The second thing is, I think that there's becoming this clear separation between hard care and soft care. Hard care would be this very fast, tech-enabled, how many steps, did I do it? Very more assertive, very insight-driven, to this with side by side with slow care, this more emotional, experiential kind of wellness, whether that be getting into nature, or, one of the things in soft care that is evolving is a great example of side by side, hard care and soft care, is wellness travel. We're seeing wellness residential complexes, wellness hotels, wellness retreats, tours where you leave the place better than when you got there. So all of these things are kind of existing side by side, and they will interplay with one another. So that's something that's happening. There is a definite migration or evolution of longevity. It used to be woo-woo or like not good health practice to proactively try not to die.
Which sounds crazy to say.
It sounds crazy to say, but the system is built around us living to 72. And now all of the science is there. Maybe there wasn't as much science, but now there's this, I would call it the longevity care and traditional healthcare kind of butting heads a little bit. They both think each other are quacks, and but the science is becoming more and more indisputable. And essentially, we will end up living longer. And there will be two really things about that, in my opinion, is one is proactive. We want to live longer and are willing to spend money to live longer. Now, there is a health equity issue there, but that is happening with people who have the money. But because you live longer, you also will be working longer. And working longer is good for society in that you will be a productive contributor to society. You will be paying taxes. You will be, still working in the workforce. But we're not used to having an 80-year-old in the workforce. So there will need to be different solutions to support that aging working population. And I don't know exactly what those look like. The other thing I would say is if we think about fitness, I think fitness is changing dramatically, not just because of the technology, but because of all of this soft care, because of this longevity, the experience, the longevity science. Gyms are transforming into wellness places for wellness. They're integrating these services into the gym now. It's not, you don't just go there and lift weights anymore. And a lot of investment is being made. And then another thing that I see happening is that there is a clear understanding that your mental health and your physical health are deeply connected. And so there is even an evolution of trainers' skills and capabilities moving toward not just being a trainer, but being a mindfulness coach. Almost a smaller version of a mental health therapist in a way. And bringing those two things together, not because they're like a bartender and everybody tells them the trainer their problems, but because it makes sense to treat the whole person. So, and there's a laundry list of more things that are happening. But
sounds like it.
It's in a $6 trillion industry, there's a lot that can happen.
Yeah, for sure. All that being said, you are the founder of a wellness company. So what are some of the biggest concerns in the health and wellness space that you would have us watch out for?
The continued evolution of misinformation and disinformation. I don't necessarily see that going anywhere, although I do think that AI could play a role in helping us to weed through the mess a bit. Ingredients and claims are sort of related to misinformation and disinformation, but I think ingredients, for me, is going to be one of the new frontiers, problematic, that's turned into an opportunity. This notion of radical transparency, a transparent supply chain. Where do the ingredients come from? Is it just peppermint, or is it peppermint from a certain place? Now, you might say that, and by the way, is it peppermint or does it taste like peppermint? That's a whole different thing, right?
Yeah.
So, but this radical transparency and I think things like, technology is already available to allow us to track all the way through the supply chain. And so, I see that as something that we should continue to push for. And then the last thing, go ahead.
Well, that's something that we see a lot here as well, like misinformation versus disinformation. First of all, I don't know that people know what that means. Like misinformation is like somebody in good faith, on accident, maybe even saying something that's just not true.
Yep.
You see this all the time on social media.
Yeah.
Disinformation is intentionally or malicious. Yeah. Yep. And so that's a huge issue. So I agree with that.
Yeah. And misinformation, you could chalk it up to, okay, we're humans, and if you learn from your misinformation mistake, I've said misinformation. We all have, right? But like you said, disinformation is the real problem. And the other thing I just wanted to say is something we should look out for is there's a lot of tension in the world right now on many topics, one of which is sustainability. And I will take a very strong position on this. If you're a brand that is not bought into reducing your footprint in the world, you won't exist eventually. And so I would say brands should not necessarily relax in this world where there's a lot of ambiguity about whether sustainability is here to stay or not. Sustainability has longevity. And
Nice.
I think if you're not paying attention and continuing your efforts in using this ambiguous time to step it up, I don't think that you will survive.
What are some ways that Mavi focuses on sustainability? Like, what do you guys do to be an example for brands?
Well, we're really bringing the resources to the table, to be quite honest. One, we're making sure that the brands who are, part of our family are doing things to control their carbon footprint. And two, we're bringing resources to the table for them to get better and better and better at it. We personally don't ship product. Like I said, we're planting trees as a result of orders. We're enabling others to plant trees. More things will be coming, by the way, on the topic of sustainability, including the ability to calculate your own carbon footprint in life and presenting you with opportunities to reduce it. So when we think about wellness, we fundamentally believe, without argument, that we can no longer separate our own well-being from that of the planet's. And if you are separating the two and not paying attention to one of them, you're not going to be around, to be quite honest, to experience what happens when we don't take care of the planet. But your kids will, and your grandkids will. And
something that you've mentioned a couple of things. You don't ship products and stuff, but you do have an app. So it is on servers, and there are AI features that you're using which are on servers. And data centers disproportionately affect vulnerable communities. There's the waste and disposal of outdated servers. There's the water consumption to cool data servers. So what could a company that maybe isn't shipping things, because we don't ship stuff. We have servers.
Yeah,
what could they do?
Yeah, we have this question all the time because we do have a bunch of, they're like, oh, well, we're digital. We don't have a carbon footprint. To your point, you do, and so does Mavi.
Right.
And, look, using servers, like Amazon has a very big commitment to the planet and their carbon footprint, and they do invest in sustainable energy sources. And so they are doing those things. So that's one step. And you're either using Google or you're using Amazon. You're probably don't have a server in your kitchen. So if you did, then I would say move to Amazon or Google. But so that's one thing. The other thing that you can do is if you have an office where people actually show up, you can make sure that it's as green as possible, right? That you actually are recycling, that you actually do, that you do support the education of your employees about what it means to live a greener life, and there's a spectrum, right? You don't have to you don't have to move from today to the most aggressive end of the spectrum, but you'd be surprised with 8 billion people on the planet how little things add up. And so I think it's all of our responsibility to educate, inform, and inspire people to start to bring greener practices into their life. And Mavi takes some of that burden off of you as an employer, by the way. We build a lot of content around sustainability. We allow your employees to plant trees, among other things. We also recommend, we have some content around making your morning practice, like brushing your teeth and cleaning your ears, making that more sustainable. So we're always just looking for ways to meet you where you can hear the message.
Is there anything that you know about, in the data center space or in that? Because that's a huge one for technology companies and things like that.
Energy consumption is the major thing that companies are investing in. Where do they get greener energy? And, if you live in Bhutan, for example, they have free energy because they have this incredible, powerful water source that can, fuel the energy for the entire company. But not everybody's as lucky to have that. So where you get your energy, and also, investing in the mechanisms to, I want to say offset, but that's what it's termed as, an offset. But really what it is buying investment. An offset is essentially just an investment in sustainability projects that exist in the world, and whether that's planting trees or building water power or putting up solar power or putting windmills in the middle of the ocean. All of those are projects, and they're funded with carbon credits, carbon offsets. And by the way,
which essentially are You go.
Well, I was just going to say, there's a growing, I don't want to get into a Bitcoin conversation, but, there's a lot of resistance to Bitcoin because of the energy consumption that it's required. I mean, talk about servers, right?
Yeah.
And in order to mine Bitcoin, it takes really, really, really powerful servers to crack cryptographic algorithms to make the Bitcoin show up in the world. So,
to mine it.
Yeah, to mine it. And these miners I believe they will lead the charge in helping us to solve the energy problems in the world, because they're being forced, literally forced, in order to survive. That's how they get paid in Bitcoin. They need to figure out ways to lower the cost to mine the Bitcoin. And the only way to lower the cost to mine the Bitcoin is get more powerful servers or get cheaper energy, or both. And it's going to have to be both. So I think you're going to see a lot of innovation come from the Bitcoin mining community around energy innovation.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see y'all have some like resources or things like energy conscious servers that they could purchase, or like different things like that for like the technology or the people who aren't shipping products but are like in the technology space. It'd be cool to have like a resource for that from Mavi or something like that. It'd be cool.
Well, we allow our brand partners to buy trees from us and help us build the Mavi forest, and that is in and of itself cool. An offset. So
yeah, that is a cool feature. I love that. I remember learning that you did that, and I was like, "Well, this is."
I'm thinking about requiring that every new brand partner buys 100 trees to get started.
Hey, there we go.
Yeah, we'll see.
I like trees. All right, let's move in the lightning lab. Chloe, you want to start us off here? This is just a primer. The goal in the lightning lab, it's one of our audience's favorite little sections, is one word, one sentence, or one story responses. It's just a couple questions, but that's the goal. When we're going through
That's the goal. All right.
It's the goal.
Ideally.
All right.
Okay, the first question is, do you have a dark industry secret? So what's maybe a shady practice in the health and wellness space that nobody's talking about?
I thought you meant shady that we're doing.
No.
Like nothing comes to mind.
Like the whole point is to avoid that.
That no one's talking about. I mean, I think that there's just misunderstanding around ingredients. I mean, I think people are talking about it, but there's a lot of misunderstanding about it. And I think that that's something we need to get better at.
Completely. Yeah.
I bet that resonates with Chloe. I bet Miss Chemical Engineer over here.
Deeply resonates.
All right. Next question is, what is one important truth in the wellness space that very few people agree with you on?
That very few people agree with. Everybody agrees with everything I say, Cody. Very few.
Yes. Maybe it's not even it doesn't have to be in the wellness space, but just a truth that you believe to be true that others disagree with you on.
That you create your own reality. I think I think people are growing into that concept, but I think still a little woo-woo.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a wild one. As a brain scientist, I can definitely attest to the truth in it, but
yeah, right.
We'll let the people get there.
Yeah.
All right, and last is, what's a question you wish more people asked you?
What's the end game of being well? Like from a population perspective.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the end game of being well from a population perspective?
I think that the well-being of humanity is the largest problem on the planet, is that we are increasingly unwell.
Mm-hmm.
And the outcome is, or the impact of even being this much more well across the entire population is unfathomable economic horsepower. I think the largest untapped human resource on the planet is human behavior.
Wow.
And I think that we should acknowledge that and reward behavior that makes both individuals and communities more well.
Damn. I like that.
Wow.
That's
awesome.
a good
That's
answer.
a really good answer. The last question we have, so we always have a previous guest leave a question for the next guest. So the last guest was Loren Wright. She's the founder of the Natural Nipple. I believe her products are going to be on Mavee or are on Mavee.
As of yesterday.
Yeah.
Let's
Amazing.
go.
Okay, so it's perfect
Yeah.
timing.
Check them out. They're in there.
Yeah. So she didn't know you were coming next, but her question was just very simply, what drives you?
I'm going to answer in two ways. What drove me, I think, was rooted in ego before 2017. And I think what drives me today is impact. I mean, it's a very broad word, but what I really do believe is that we can make the world a better place, but we have to take care of ourselves. And if I can move the needle even a little bit, I feel like Mavi will have had a huge impact.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
I love that.
That's really good.
All right, what's the question you'd like to leave for our next guest? You don't know who they are,
Right.
but they're in the wellness space probably. But
They're
what's the
probably
question
in the wellness space.
Yeah, they would be. Yeah.
How can you grow your impact in the world?
Beautiful. We've got it marked down. How can you grow your impact in the world? I love that. And we appreciate you hopping on here too. We'll definitely ask that to our next guest. And we really appreciate you joining us.
Thank you,
Is
Frank.
yeah, for real. Is there any place you'd like to point people as we kind of wrap up here?
Should I have sent you a link there?
Oh, we can. We'll put it in the description when it's posted, so you can still send us any link you'd like.
Oh yeah, I mean, look, I would say, hey, get into the community early, download Mavi. There will be $20 waiting for you in your digital wallet. Poke around, explore, and grow with us.
Do they have to do anything to get that $20, or just download the app?
Download the app.
Hell yeah. All right, cool. You heard it first. We'll put the download link in the description. Download the app for $20 cash, cold hard cash.
Cash is
cool.
king.
Well, we
Cash is
appreciate
king.
it. And that's it for our conversation. Everybody knows that Chloe and I will stick around for the lab results section here in a second, but we appreciate you hopping on here, Frank. Thank you so much. And
thank you, guys.
We really appreciate you hopping on. Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Heck yeah. All right. We'll see y'all in the lab results. Peace. All right, we're back. Mavi lab results. Let's talk about this. We just finished up with Frank. How you feeling? What did you think about the conversation?
Good. I thought it was a really good conversation. Like, Frank's just like good vibes, good energy. We both have known Frank for a long time, so it's just like always a pleasure.
I agree. Yeah, Frank is good vibes. I love that dude. I didn't know. I knew the basic background that he had and stuff, but I didn't know as in depth as he went today. So that was really cool to get to dive a little bit deeper with him and his little 8-month sabbatical, or 18-month sabbatical, which is kind of wild, which led to Mavi. So that's kind of cool. And disclaimer too, we have created content for Mavi. We've worked with them before as like a brand partner. They're a little bit different because it's like a brand of brands instead of just like one brand. It's like a brand of brands. And so it's kind of interesting. But we've made some content for them and we've helped them. So I think that's an important disclaimer that we should talk about as well before we dive into the lab results portion here. So what do you think? What do you think about Mavi? You've used it a little bit. We worked with them. What do you think? They passed the lab test?
Yeah, I've always been bullish on Mavi. Like, I think they do everything with a lot of intentionality, and it just really seems like they just want to make the world a better place. So they work with brands that are sustainable. They do their best to vet them and make sure, the brands are like, telling the truth about what's in the ingredients. And so it just really seems like there's a lot of value and value alignment there.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there's room for improvement. And the hardest part about this podcast and the show and then the conversations we have is that we are really, really pushing on the edges here. Really, really poking in deeply into the systems and the processes and the things these companies are doing. When in reality, if you look at Amazon, they're doing 0% of this vetting. Like anyone, I could go right now and put something on Amazon and you have no idea. And Mavi is doing at least what they're currently doing. And then, of course, we're here to ask the hard questions and push deeper. Like, what can you do more? What are your sustainability practices? Is this stuff public? And I was amazed to hear they're about to make those assessments that they do for brands, giving them a score, giving them a rating, and making that stuff public. I would love to see some like third-party validation on Mavi itself. Like, what are you doing to be sustainable? Who's holding you accountable? What you said is rolling out and things like that as well. So I thought that was interesting and just something to kind of think about. That's interesting. So they passed the lab test for you?
Yes, passed.
Yeah, they passed lab tests for me. I think there's some Growing Pains is an app. Sometimes it's hard to find a product, or sometimes like it's not the perfect Amazon experience because Amazon's been doing it for years. They got billions of dollars. Some of that, it's a startup. Like I say that to people, like it's a startup. Like you're along for the journey or you're not. right? It can't always all be perfect. So that would be the one piece, is like, would I actually buy this? Yeah, I've used products on there. I've grabbed products off there. Like, yeah, I do use it. If you're expecting the perfect Amazon experience, don't. Like, they're getting there, but again, it's a startup. Like, they're working on it. So what about you? Would you actually buy this or use it?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would, especially like I think the market they've gone after for like workplace where employers can give money for it. I'm like, brilliant.
Yes. Dude, if I was an employer,
I was like, I would
ASAP.
love this if I worked for a company that had that option.
100%.
I mean, I
That's
spend
a
so
review
much
game.
money ordering supplements.
Dude, 100%.
So this would be great for me.
I feel you. I feel you on that. Was there any surprises or lessons learned from this one, or any big moments that you liked?
Actually, the thing that like stuck out for me was his kind of opinions on crypto and Web3, and how, you know, the future of sustainability is going to be driven by like Bitcoin miners in that space. I was like, oh, that's really interesting. I never really thought of it that way.
Yeah. It makes sense though. I mean, the people that want to, bottom line, money, like they want to make more money. And that drives a lot of innovation and things like that. So we'll see if it plays out. Like, who knows? Is that actually going to play out, or is it going to be other people to do it? Or like, and how does all that work? Like, I have no idea. But I think that's interesting. And I do think taking a harder look at digital companies and things like that and what they could do to be more sustainable. Like with the servers and the water usage and some of these things. CJ, our brand director, mentioned that before we hopped on. She's like, make sure to ask about this. I'm like, oh, I'm so happy you reminded me. So I thought that was an interesting piece that I wish there was more information on for digital companies. There's a ton for product companies, and that's great, but what about digital companies, right? So I would love to know that more. The other one too was the amount of money that is spent, like $6.8 trillion on wellness, even during the pandemic, even during the economic downturn. Like, wow, that stuck out to me a ton. Like, makes me even more motivated to do more of these episodes, because people are spending tons of money on this stuff. And if they have the experience like Frank did, like I've had, like you've had, where they open the box and they're like, what the hell? Like, we want to prevent that. Like, or if they think, oh, this is going to cure my anxiety. Like, will it? Will it really? Like, what are the percentages? What's the chance? What's the likelihood? So that kind of got me jacked up too and motivated to get more of these shots.
Yeah, me too. I think it's really important to help people make decisions so they don't waste money and so they don't also do harm to themselves.
Right. And we're not infallible either. Like that's the thing I was also thinking about. I was like, okay, what's our rating? Like, who is checking us? Like, who's validating with us? Like, we have degrees, we have science, we have backgrounds and all this kind of stuff. But that's also something I was thinking about as well. Like, could we have a review board? Could we have these other things that we put in place as well? Could we use consensus or different AI tools to help us validate things and fact check what we're thinking and saying? And how do we have a remediation system? Like, in research, researchers have a way to pull down results or update results or like make updates to their things. It's not always as public, but we could be. So it's interesting. It's just a thing that I'm thinking about as well for us.
I like that. Always wanting to become better.
Hey, let's go. If you're an anxious achiever who is a creator that has the endless drive to want to be better, but doesn't know how to live their life and be happy, you should join the Balanced Creator community. That made me think about that. We just started this community, so I'm really excited. We're starting to fill that thing up. 80% is mental health and mindset for creators, and 20% is helping like the basics of content creation for creators. So I'll put it in the comments below or in the description below. You should definitely hit us up. It's also in the link in our bio. It's everywhere, so you can find it. All right, cool. Any final thoughts or anything else you got?
No, that's all for me. How about you, Cody?
Beautiful.
Anything?
Nope, that's it. That's a wrap for the Decision Lab. Hope you liked the lab results section, give you a little bit of clarity on whether or not Mavi is worth it. If you love this no BS approach to wellness, you should definitely like and subscribe so that you never miss an episode. And if there's a brand you want us to investigate, drop it in the comments or hit us up on Instagram. We love to chat with you guys. And as you saw today, we bring questions from you to these founders. So if you have a question or a brand you want us to ask a specific question to, let us know. And we'll get hunting to get them on here and have a conversation with them. Thank you so much. We'll see y'all next time on the Decision Lab.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.